I love you, O Lord, my strength. The Lord is my rock and my fortress and my deliverer, my God, my rock in whom I take refuge, my shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold. I call upon the Lord, who is worthy to be praised, and I am saved from my enemies.
Good morning. It's good to see you, and it's good to be together, and I'm so thankful for the rain instead of the snow. I'll take that any day. This year, as you know, what we're looking at is having victory over adversity. We thought that was probably appropriate coming from the year 2020 and transitioning into this year. And this month in particular, as we continue in that theme, what we're looking at is overcoming that adversity. The things that we can do to overcome that adversity. And this psalm that Scott just read for us is lengthy, but as it begins here in Psalm chapter 18, verses 1 through 3, we see like one thing that we can do in order to overcome adversity is hold on to God. Hold on to God for dear life. So as we hold on to God, we understand that God is so many things to us. And that's what we're looking at as this psalm opens up, and it divulges into God being our rock. And I imagine, as I've been preparing for this particular lesson, in the back of my mind, I've had this image of a rock climber. And a rock climber, if there's one thing that they do not do, it's let go of that rock. You cannot let go of that rock. And it's the same for us as Christians. If we see God as our rock, we see him as our refuge, our stronghold, and our deliverer, there's one thing that you cannot do. If you want to overcome adversity, if you want to overcome the difficulties in life, don't let go of God. Because God's going to carry you through. Let's look at this particular psalm as we begin this lesson. The first thing that we see about God is that he is our deliverer. And we're going to focus particularly on verse 2 of verses 1 through 3. Verse 3 might be a little familiar to us since we sing a song, I will call upon the Lord, who is worthy to be praised. But that comes from the idea that God is our rock. Therefore, he is worthy to be praised. God is our deliverer. Look at verse 2 with me. The Lord is my rock and my fortress, my deliverer. My God, my rock in whom I take refuge, my shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold. God is our deliverer. As you face adversities, difficulties in life, whatever situation that you find yourself in, that is somewhat difficult. One word of advice. Hold on to God because God will deliver you. God will allow you to overcome because God is our deliverer. As we look, and we're going to stay entirely in the book of Psalms. Entirely in the book of Psalms this morning. But look in particular at some other verses in the 18th Psalm about the things that God delivers us from. We see if we maybe turn the page or we look later on just a few verses in verse 43, we see that God is our deliverer from strife. Look at this. You delivered me from strife with the people. You made me the head of the nations. People whom I had not known served me. God is our deliverer from strife. Have you ever had strife in your life? Have you ever had friction? Maybe at work, maybe at home, maybe at school. You've had friction where there were people that just did not like you. There were people that it seems that they were out to get you. Well, by whatever means necessary, strife. Well, we see a lot of people in the Bible who were trying to serve God that dealt with strife. I'm reminded automatically of three fellas in particular that had a lot of strife, at least at one instance in their life. You remember King Nebuchadnezzar in Daniel chapter 3? King Nebuchadnezzar erected this giant tower to himself, this monstrosity. And he said, hey, whenever we blow the trumpets and whenever we blow the flutes and the lyres, whenever you hear the music, I want everyone everywhere to bow down. Stop whatever you're doing and bow down to this image of me. You talk about strife when you're wanting to serve God. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, as they were called, they refused strife. Ultimately, it didn't work out so well for them because they were thrown into the furnace. But you know what? Even being thrown into the furnace, look at it, God is our deliverer. If we continue reading, we arrive at Daniel chapter 6. Another instance of strife is when Daniel was serving a king that was well pleased with him. And in fact, he was one of three, but he was probably, as we understand it, the second in command, a very powerful person, Strife. And the other, his comrades, his partners, so to speak, his co-workers. They didn't like him very much, but they couldn't find anything against him unless they found it in relation to God. Strife. Ultimately, again, it didn't work out very well. Because you were supposed to pray to the king. Daniel continued to pray to God. Strife. They threw him into the lion's den, you remember? Strife. Friction. God delivered him. God will deliver us. And it may not be by the way that we're thinking, and it may not look like the way that we want it to look, but I promise you, hold on to God because God can deliver us, and He will deliver us from strife. Look at verse 48 also. We see another way, again, Psalm chapter 18, another thing from which God delivers us, and we see here, let's read it. Who delivered me, the God, we see in verse 47, the God who gave me vengeance and subdued people under me, who delivered me from my enemies. Yes, you exalted me above those who rose against me. You rescued me from the man of violence. God will deliver us from our enemies. Vengeance is mine, says the Lord. I will repay. God is going to take care of our enemies. In this life or the next, we don't have to worry about who's in control. We don't have to worry about who's in power, who's in the White House. We don't have to worry about any of those things because God is going to deliver us, even from our enemies. I'm so thankful that we serve a powerful God. I'm reminded of Daniel, this little boy, probably a preteen or a teenager. And with all the boldness and audacity of a teenager, he goes up, picks up 5 smooth stones from the creek, and he begins whirling his slingshot. Dink. And he kills Goliath. God will deliver us from our enemies. If we hold on to God, God's going to deliver us from our enemies. Or Elijah, can you imagine one man standing against 450 prophets of Baal? God will deliver us from our enemies because God is our ultimate and our great deliverer. We see, if we go back to Psalm chapter 18, verse 2, that God is also not just our deliverer, but God is our refuge. Let's read this again together. God is our refuge. The Lord is my rock and my fortress, my deliverer, my God, my rock, in whom I take refuge, my shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold. God is our refuge. We may think of this maybe in the same sense that we may think of a tornado shelter, right? I don't know if you've seen these things, but you dig a big hole, you put a door on it, and you're safe from the storm. That's essentially what it is, right? And when the tornado or the storm comes by, it skips right over that tornado shelter. You know why? Because you have a refuge. So it is with God. When the storms of life, when things in bad situations come our way, when God is our refuge, we hold on to God. The storm passes and we're safe because God is our refuge. I'm so thankful that God can save me from all the storms, all the troubles and trials that come our way, because God is my shelter. He's my refuge. Let's look at Psalm chapter 46, verses 1 through 3 very quickly, because there's a lot of different situations in life from which we need refuge. And God can give us and provide us with those refuge, with that type of refuge. Look at Psalm chapter 46. Look at the first 3 verses there. Beginning in verse 1, he says, God is our refuge. There it is again. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear. Look at this. We will not fear. Though the earth gives way, though the mountains be moved into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam, though the mountains tremble at its swelling, I ain't going to be scared. I'm not going to be scared from any of the external things in life, because God gives us external peace, right? God gives us that external peace. It doesn't matter what else is going on in this world. God provides us with external peace. He gives us the things in life that will bring us through. Though the mountains quake, though they tremble, though the sea roars and foams, God gives us peace. It doesn't matter what this world looks like. It doesn't matter how many greenhouse gases go up in the air. I mean, you might be concerned about that, but at the end of the day, God is my refuge. God's going to take care of me. It doesn't matter who is in the White House. You know why? God is my refuge. It doesn't matter what happens at work. You know why? Because God is my refuge. Just like as you see the storm coming, you get in the shelter. It doesn't matter if the storm picks up my house and throws it across the field. It doesn't matter if all the trees break and fall in front of my house. It doesn't matter if it picks up my car and throws it across the world, because God is my refuge. The storm will pass if we allow God to be our refuge. He gives us this external peace. It doesn't matter what's going on around you. God's going to take care of you. Another passage that I want to bring your attention to, if we again continue with this theme, God gives us external peace as our refuge, but God also gives us internal peace. Look at Psalm chapter 62 with me, with this idea in mind. Psalm chapter 62, look at verse 7 and verse 8. On God rests my salvation and my glory. My mighty rock, here it is, my refuge is God. Trust in him at all times, O people. Pour out your heart before him. God is a refuge for us. God is our refuge. If we pour out our heart to God, we have internal peace. God gives us peace internally when we pour out our heart to him. Let me remind you of something. There ain't a better friend in the world than God. There ain't a better listener in the world than my Father. There is not anyone in this world that cares more about what's going on in your life than God. God is our refuge, and he can calm our soul. Internal peace. Trust in him at all times. On God, look at this. On God rests my salvation and my glory. My mighty rock, my refuge is God. You're worried about whether we're going to go to heaven or whether we're going to go to hell? Give it to God. God is our refuge. On God rests my salvation. Let's go back to Psalm chapter 18. God is our refuge. God is our deliverer. Psalm 18, gives us one more thing, at least one more thing, at least for us, that God is. God is our stronghold. God is our stronghold. Look at verse 2 again with us. The Lord is my rock, my fortress, and my deliverer. My God, my rock, in whom I take refuge, my shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold. Stronghold. Now, it may be a slightly foreign to us. We're a little bit removed, but the idea is that God is our stronghold. He is our fortified city, right? He is a place that we can go, that we can make a defense, and we can withstand whatever is coming. We can withstand the enemy that is coming because we are in a fortified city. We are in a stronghold. So really, I suppose if we think about it, the stronghold is kind of a combination of a deliverer and a refuge. It's a combination of God being our deliverance and the one from whom we take refuge, because we take refuge in this fortified city, this great big walled city. We take refuge in that. We see the enemy coming and we hide ourselves in our stronghold. You know why? Because our stronghold can deliver us. We can make a stand with our God, our fortified city. I love this idea because it hints at us being at war. Sometimes we don't think and we don't act like we're at war, but we are at war because Satan is out to get us. He's waging war against our souls. He wants you so bad. We are at war. My shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold. He is our deliverance and our refuge. We can take refuge in Him. Let's go to Psalm chapter 62 one more time. We can take refuge in Him. Look at this. From our enemies. Look at, as it describes here, this, as David is writing in Psalm, the 62nd Psalm. Look at how he describes his enemy. Verse 3 and verse 4. How long will all of you attack a man to batter him? Like a leaning wall, a tottering fence. They only plan to thrust him down from his high position. They take pleasure in falsehood. They bless with their mouths, but inwardly they curse. Can you imagine? Here's the king of the land, and he feels as if he is like a leaning wall. All you got to do is blow on me. All you got to do is push me just a little bit, and I'm going to collapse. I'm going to give in. Have you ever felt like that? Have you ever felt as if you are on the brink, right? Everyone's wondering when it's going to happen. You're on the brink, and you're just about to fall off. Just one more thing, and I'm going to give in. Just one more thing goes wrong, and I'm going to lose it. You ever felt like that? Have you ever been in a conversation or acquainted with someone who is a hypocrite? Someone who loves you to your face, but behind your back, they're a completely different person. Have you ever known someone like that? David did. They bless with their mouths, but inwardly they curse your enemies. God can give you refuge from your enemies. But also, if we continue reading, God is our deliverance. God is our deliverance. For God alone, look at verse 5 and verse 6. For God alone, O my soul, wait in silence, for my hope is in Him. He only is my rock and my salvation, my fortress. I shall not be shaken. God is my salvation. You want to be delivered from your enemies? You want to be delivered from that hypocrite, the one who constantly batters you behind your back, but up front, they love you. Or maybe you feel like you're on the brink. Just one more thing and I'm going to lose it. Just one more thing and you're over the edge and I'm gone. I'm out of here. Just one more thing. A leaning wall. You want deliverance? Comes from God. God is my salvation. How do you get that salvation? I think maybe perhaps we see a glimpse of that in verse 5 and verse 6. For God alone, you turn to God. God alone. Only God. You want deliverance from that person? Let me tell you, it's not in alcohol. It's not in retaliation. It's not in gossiping. It's not in slander. It's in God and God alone. God alone is my salvation. And look at verse 5, the very next phrase. Oh, my soul, look at it, wait in silence. I know. Easier said than done. When someone is slandering you, when someone is being a hypocrite, it is easier said than done to wait in silence. When you are the leaning wall, easier said than done, wait in silence. But wait on God, because vengeance is mine, says the Lord. I will repay. God is going to deliver us if we wait on Him. And verse 8 also, we've already read it, but verse 8 also says, trust in Him at all times, O people. Pour out your heart before Him. God is our refuge. How many times have you seen King David pour out his heart to God because he knows that God, he can trust in God? Wait on God. Trust in God. God is our fortified city. He's our stronghold. He will deliver us, and He will provide us with refuge. I don't know what you're dealing with in your life. I don't know what's going on, but I do know this. If you hold on to God, God's going to take care of it. Whatever situation it is, overcoming adversity, it begins and ends with God. Maybe you're not holding on to God. Maybe you're holding on to the world. Something in this world. Give it up, cling to God, and God's going to take care of you. Or maybe you never took hold of Him to begin with, and you need to be baptized. You need to have your sins washed away, and you need to give your life to God and begin holding on to Him. If we can help you, if we can pray for you, whatever it is, please come as we stand and as we sing.